We shouldn't worry about what message we're sending to the world if we tell these stories. What we should worry about is what message we're sending to the world if we cover up these stories.
I'm Bobby Gilstrap. Joining me today is 40-year veteran journalist Joni Hannigan, who recently interviewed SBC presidential candidate Randy Adams about the abuse and non-disclosure agreements found in the Southern Baptist Convention. They both join me today, and here is just part of our 2-hour conversation.
An NDA does exactly what people would ask you not to do. An NDA threatens that that entity will sue you, okay? So, for instance, in the case of the Supreme Court situation, they're saying they shouldn't be sued, but an NDA reserves the right for them to sue you. So where is the individual's protection, and where is the fairness in that? It is simply a way to hush people up. And imagine, because this is what happened in 2014, imagine a newspaper editor, a Baptist newspaper editor who has served Baptists most of their entire adult life, even before I worked for Florida Baptist, having agreed to my personnel manual that said anything that we did would be taken through an arbitrator or peace whatever. All of a sudden, after I resigned, and after I was told by the chairman of our trustees at the time that I would hear back from him, being handed a termination agreement with an NDA. You know what I did. You've already seen my tears. You know what I did. I looked at that and I bawled. I never thought that the Baptist entity that I worked for would hand me something that said I should seek legal advice before I sign this. So they were offended when I did seek legal advice. They were offended, but it said right on there, seek legal advice. It was an NDA. It threatened to keep the money that was owed to me that I worked for unless I signed this by a certain date. But then it also said, do not sign this if you're under pressure. It was absolutely
Well, so let me just ask you.
Document. And
Okay, yeah, okay. So Joni, let me just ask you real fast though, because I think your story is very common for others in this sense. Your feeling when you were put in that position, you can't get what rightfully should be given to you as far as the financial aspect of that, okay, and you can't get that which you need to help care for your family, et cetera, at that point, and you feel this enormous pressure. So describe that feeling and impact that you had signing that, and then Randy, I want you to respond to her, because you guys talked about this abuse in your interview more than what we actually have in print. But Joni, share.
Let me just say that I am blessed. It was agonizing. The whole situation of my resignation, which turned into a termination. We couldn't even be friendly about it. Okay. My resignation that turned into a termination. I spent most of the time when I wasn't working furiously to make the paper look good and to leave on a high note and do my duty as unto the Lord, was spent in bed, sick, sick to my heart. But your question was how did I feel about it? I couldn't have been more distressed, but I was blessed in this way. I guess what was marginalized was the relationships that I had built through the years. So let's just say I knew some very good lawyers that all I had to do was walk out of the building and pick up my cell phone and make a call. And I've never been worried about that NDA because within 2 years, there was no longer the organization that I signed the NDA with.
Right.
I mean, God did not bless that board of trustees. God did not bless that organization. It is no longer. So it does not exist. And I know some might see that as a challenge, but it's not. It grieved me. It still does that happened. But
Well, and the reality is there are a lot of people that have been forced into, just
and
like
I
you
grieve
said,
for them. I totally grieve for them.
right, exactly.
I did an article a couple of years after that for a newspaper, one of our state papers, that never printed it because it was too hot. And it talked about that very thing, people having or being asked to sign those. And somebody said, one of the people involved in a ministry that takes care of pastors who are fired or terminated said, and I agree, that we shouldn't worry about what message we're sending to the world if we tell these stories. What we should worry about is what message we're sending to the world if we cover up these stories, that they'll be more impressed with our ability to tell the truth and to forgive each other and to restore each other and to admit that we have shortcomings than they are by our attempt to put a smile on our face and to cover up and pretend that we are without sin, because we are a sinful people just like everyone else.
Randy, your
Yeah, I
thoughts?
think,
Sinful
well,
people.
I think what Joni is saying, one of the things is we value the organization or the mission of the organization theoretically more so than the individual who carries it out. What we're seeing right now in these abuse cases and the covering up of abuse currently and historically is that the individual is expendable.
Yeah,
It's really the end justifies the means.
right.
If the end can be argued to be the gospel work or the success of the organization, then the means to that end, if those means destroy a person or harm an individual person, they're considered justifiable. I totally and vehemently object to that and think it's wrong, dead wrong. It's not biblical. One of the things we love about Jesus is Jesus focused on the individual and not just important people like a Nicodemus, but the woman at the well in the very next chapter in John chapter 4, or the beggar at the pool of Bethesda, the crippled man at the pool of Bethesda. You think through the scriptures, and the value of the individual is something we see in Jesus. And what we're talking about in these abuse cases is devaluing the individual and elevating either the powerful who control or run the organization or the organization itself. And that to me is where we've come to in Baptist life that is so dangerous and damaging. And if we don't get if we don't solve this, if we don't end this kind of abuse, then our destruction is something we can expect and something really that is justifiable. I mean, will God bless a people who don't value individuals and who instead will destroy an individual for the benefit of the organization? I just don't believe he would.
Yeah, no, I was going to follow up because you used that word abuse, and that's kind of where we started. So, if I'm understanding you right, you're saying, you're saying that these NDAs are abusive, especially within the Christian environment.
Yeah,
I believe they are.
Yeah.
I believe they're abusive. And I believe Joni suffered abuse when she was in the military at the age of 18. And then she suffered abuse when she got the text message from the North American Mission Board threatening her if she wouldn't remove truthful information from an article that she had written about their leader. So to protect Kevin Ezell, to protect the leader, and they might say the mission of NAM, they would find her expendable, and they would threaten to go after her legally for telling information that was in fact correct. They did
Johnny,
not
how does
argue
that
that
make
it
you
wasn't
feel to
correct.
hear Randy say that? I'm sorry, Randy, to interrupt, but I wanted to get from Joni. How does that make you? How do you respond? Maybe feeling is not the right term. How do you respond when you hear Randy say that?
I feel affirmed in that. I mean, I try not to dwell. You know, I've tried to get to peace with where I am. It is very hard. I mean, there's just a lot of things. There's a lot of water under the bridge, and I know God has a plan, and all of that. We can't turn back the clock, but I just, I just look out there and I wonder how many people's lives. It's tough, but I think about the others out there, who could have been great Southern Baptist leaders, and instead they're working somewhere, for FEMA in the secular world. They're working elsewhere for corporation or somewhere. They're not in Southern Baptist life anymore. Those wonderful gifts are being used elsewhere. And, why should a person have that much power, that much control? But NAM is enormously powerful through ads they take out, through gifts they send to people, through properties they purchase, through funding they give to church planners, to state conventions, through just all kinds of things come with these ties. And if you are not on their good side, if you do not play their game, if you do not please the man, you are left out. And there's so many instances that people don't know of, things that have changed so radically